Hey, shalom, 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 shalom. Peace, peace, peace. Kwam Yasha'Allah, Kwam Yasha'Allah. And once again, you're now under the sounds of the voice of your brother Tazadaq. Finally, some of you may say. This is actually supposed to take place at 7 p.m., running a little bit late, but hey, I'm here. So with that being said, I just want to say, as usual, you know that nothing I give is actually legal advice. I never give you any kind of legal advice. Everything I give is for educational, informational, entertainment purposes only, never to be misconstrued as legal advice. Hold on, let me get some more light here. A little bit brighter, a little bit better. So nothing that I give. So once again, this is not legal advice. I do not offer legal advice. If you need legal advice, seek yourself a competent counsel, and then please be advised. Everything that I'm about to give you is strictly for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's never to be misconstrued or to be taken as legal advice. If you use anything here and fall flat on your face, you could only blame yourself. Everything that I tell you, everything that you hear me state, I want you to go and check it out for yourself. So question everything. Anytime someone wants you not to question them, you need to look out for them. So what I wanted to do like a preliminary creditors video right here to get your minds right for the seminar on June 16th, June 17th. And if you have not signed up for the creditors conference already, tomorrow 12 noon is going to be the last day that you could actually sign up and get the online discount, because it's only fair to those people that donated up front, because they donated up front 24 hours prior that they could actually get the discount. So anyone else, you will be able to donate after that, but only at the door. So the rate is actually going to go up $10 more at the door and $20 more for couples at the door. So again, if you're planning on attending the creditors conference in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is actually going to be located at 120 South 17th Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, then you actually should sign up now. You should actually reserve your seats now. In fact, the seats are actually really starting to get low. So I will actually encourage you to actually sign up now. However, you can, because after tomorrow around 12 noon, I'm going to take those ads down from offline, and you're not going to be able to donate online anymore. You're going to actually have to pay the at the door rate, which is actually only fair to everyone. So with that being said, I wanted to talk to you about a preliminary creditors conference. Yesterday, I was actually teaching people about their Strawman. So what I'm going to do today is go more in detail and show you how to control that Strawman and show you how to handle police encounters should you actually get involved with a police encounter. But the first thing I want to say is a lot of you answer things before you've actually heard what the person is saying. How many of you have actually ever been in an actual situation? You're talking to someone and they answer you before you even finish talking. That is not only rude, but it is against the Most High. It is against the scriptures. So when someone is talking, show respect. Show some damn decorum. Don't try and talk over them like what you have to say is much more important than what they have to say. That's utterly disrespectful. So the scripture has this to say about it. The book of Proverbs, the 18th chapter, verse 13. And it says thus: to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. He that answereth a matter before he heareth, it is folly and shame unto him. So it's folly and shame when someone is talking and you talk right over them because you feel like what you have to say is much more important. Show some damn decorum. So, with that, I also would like to bring out, through the spirit, through the set apart spirit, I would like to turn your attention to the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, verse 21. And it reads as thus: For then shall be great tribulations, such was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. So the reason that things are being turned up so much is because the devil, the children of perdition, know that they have a very short time to stand. So now there's great tribulations. There's great tribulations, and he's coming down with great wrath, as it states in the book of Revelations. And so, I want to say this. A lot of you come on, you get a lot of information for free. I put out a lot of information for free. And if you're wise enough, you'll get wisdom in a lot of the information that I put out. So, go ahead. Don't be shy to give, the video a thumbs up or what have you. Don't be a troll. Don't be a hater. So the reason that I'm teaching you about the Strawman, because if you're not a secured party creditor, then you are a Strawman. You are a corporate fiction. You are in allegiance. You are a corporate construct. You are a corporation. You're dead. See, I've been telling people now, check out how ridiculous this is. For years, if you look back in my older videos, you'll hear me saying for years that the birth certificate not only represents birth, but it represents a death. Because when they created the Strawman, they killed the living soul, and they got you to believe that you was the Strawman. So they murdered the living soul spiritually and mentally, and you started to believe that you was actually that fictitious entity on the birth certificate, the all capital letters name. You start to think that you was that fictitious entity on that commercial instrument referred to as a driver's license. You started to believe that you was that fictitious entity on all governmental identifications. So there was a birth when you was born, when your mother gave labor, but shortly thereafter, when your mom informed on you, because she's listed as the informant on the birth certificate, there was also a death. So the birth certificate essentially is really a death certificate, because it killed the living soul mentally and spiritually, and it created a fictitious dead thing. And you stood in its place, and you've been standing in its place all of this time. And so when someone comes along like Tazadaq, you think I'm crazy. And so when you listen to some of my videos, and then you go to your parents, you go to your spouse, you go to your loved ones, you go to your friends, they say, stay away from that. That's going to get you locked up. This guy's crazy. Why? Because they really don't understand. They don't comprehend. Because they suffer from aphasia. They do not comprehend the proper usage of words. Did you know that according to recent reports, that approximately 80% of the people are reading on a elementary level? Their reading ability, their ability to truly comprehend words is that of an elementary level. I don't even care if you have a master's degree or PhD. You have been actually taught wrong. And until you accept that, you're never going to change. So right now, you are a fictitious dead thing, dead on the sea. On what sea? On the sea of commerce. Now, isn't it interesting that when a ship, because when you go into a court, check this out. Anytime that a constable on patrol, I think some of you refer to them as cops, constable on patrol. Anytime a cop pulls you over, he's a minion that operates for government. He operates for someone that's actually in office. He's not an officer, but he's operating for someone that is actually in office. So he's just a minion. So anytime they pull you over and write you anything, it is always an offer. But because you do not clearly comprehend contract law, you don't see that as an offer. You see it as a citation. You see it as a threat. You don't comprehend that it's just an offer. He makes me an offer. What do I do? 99% of the time, because I don't like what they're offering me, I make them a counter offer. which is always a conditional acceptance. But if you are a corporate construct, if you are a strawman, if you are a fictitious entity, then you don't have any standing. And if you've actually created joinder with the strawman, and you're acknowledging yourself with the strawman, and unless you became a secured party creditor, you are that strawman. Now you can like that, understand it, believe it or not. Unless you have undergone the redemption process properly, you, my friend, are a strawman. You are a corporation. You can like it, understand it, believe it or not. You are a slave. If you are a 14th Amendment citizen, you are a slave. And so their codes, their statutes, their rules, their regulations, their acts apply to you. And the people that created these corporations and created these statutes and created these codes, rules, regulations, and acts, or the shareholders, and you or the chattel property. And that's what slavery really is. Slavery was never abolished. We went over that yesterday. If you did not watch my video yesterday about the fictitious person, watch it on this channel right here. So how do you get out of this, Tazadaq? Well, you become a secured party creditor. See, a secured party creditor, let me explain, because most of you don't know what it is. I've literally had people call me and say, I want to become a secured party debtor. I told him to go back and study and contact me in 3 years. And he thought I was actually being rude, but I was trying to give him love. I'm really trying to help him out. So a secured party creditor is someone who holds the superior lien over the corporation, over the strawman, over the debtor. A debtor and a strawman is one and the same. So if you want to become a secured party creditor, visit my website, www.truedisciplesofchrist.org. Click on the icon for the packet, or visit my other website, creditors, debtors, contracts, and commerce.org, to become a secured party creditor or attend the seminar Saturday and Sunday, and make your donation there to become a secured party creditor. Now, so essentially, a secured party creditor means that you put a UCC lien filing process and various other documents of the redemption process, and you alter your status from that of a debtor, a corporate construct, to that of a creditor. Becoming a secured party creditor is your first step towards becoming a sovereign, if that's what many of you want to be. See, a secured party creditor, you can actually eliminate your bad credit. You could eliminate debt. You could stop foreclosures if you know how to keep it. Become a secured party creditor today. What are you waiting for? See, while the secured party creditor status rebukes the presumption that you are property of the state, because unless you became a creditor and change your status and revoke power of attorney by way of a revocation of a power of attorney, you are property of the state and you are enemy of the state. All of us has been enemy of the state since the Trading with the Enemy Act. So you must still bargain for your rights if you're not a secured party creditor. Only citizens, which are essentially slaves of the state, have privileges. For a secured party creditor, for a sovereign right, or without contract or fantasy. See, the first step into returning into being a secured party creditor or being in a sovereign capacity, being a sovereign capacity individual, is that you have to take back the artificial strawman. You have to control that and reclaim it as your debtor. Do you understand? So if you were to take a look at your driver's license, how many of you have a driver's license on you right now? Pull it out. Have a look at it. If you're the first time callers, if you're a person that's actually been researching this, you know this already. That is your strawman. When you look at that driver's license, that is your debtor. That is your corporate fiction. That's what you pulled out. When the constable on patrol, the cop pulled you over. See, that is your strawman that the government created for you. So in order to take control of that straw man, you must become a secured party creditor. There are many benefits of being a secured party creditor. One is the aspects of protection is that it offers a remedy to the alleged debts that you think you owe. It offers the ability to be able to set off a discharge debts for educational purposes only. Do you understand? And I want you to note that if discharge or money, fiat currency, is the only leading factor for you deciding to become a secure party creditor, then you stay the hell off of my channel and stay away from me, because that should not be your primary source, because you're just merely thinking about fiat. And that is what has gotten many of you into the positions that you're actually in today. Chasing fiat, chasing this fictitious currency. So with that being said, I'm gonna go back just a little of a refresher over some of the stuff that I touched on last night on this live stream, and then I'm going to proceed. So they want you to be burdened down with paying them fiat that they refer to as money, and working so hard and so long that you don't have time, that you don't have fiat that they're calling money or energy to stop and think about what is happening to you and your family. This is why they keep you working so much. And so many of you, you play right into it. You don't have time to think. You don't have the heart to quit and walk away from that job. That's what I had to do. They are desperate to stop you from just walking away from their scams. So they make every effort to connect you with this fictitious straw man, this debtor, this allegiance, because fictitious entities like commercial companies can't have any dealings with the real man or the real woman. They could only deal with another fiction or another corporation like your strawman or your debtor, and it is essential that they fool you into believing that you have to act on behalf of the strawman, but you don't. You just don't know. So they have a number of well-proven methods of distracting you and keeping you from finding out. They want you to see a great deal of entertainment, not because there's anything wrong with entertainment, like the LeBron James game, like the football seasons that's about to come up, like football, like they call it in Jamaica, soccer, like hockey. They keep you distracted, like the Xbox, like the PS4. They keep you distracted with entertainment. But while you're actually being entertained, you will not be asking any awkward questions. Why is this? Why am I always working so much and I'm giving away 80% of what I'm earning? Also, they're very careful that most entertainment reinforces their make-believe world, and it makes it appear to be the real world when you're really living in the matrix and you can't get out because of cognitive dissonance. So where everyone is under the spell, the government, the constables on patrol uphold their statutes that they refer to as law. The taxes are essential in order to keep things going, and the things which are said to be bad for you are taxed heavily. Not to make any fiat, not to make any money, but supposedly to encourage you to avoid those things. Now, you will notice that they keep saying that their invented statutes, their laws that they refer to them, which are colorable laws, their codes, their rules, their acts, their regulations are law, which they're most certainly not. But if they say it often enough, guess what? The people believe it. So you saying, Tazadaq, I don't know what to do. My family thinks I'm crazy. No one believes me. Why? Because they're still under the spell. They're still in the matrix, and they're still taking that blue pill. But you're taking red pill right knowledge. You got the book? You got my book? Red pill right knowledge? If not, give it at the seminar this weekend. So they have another effective technique that they're using on you. And some of you, sadly enough, you don't see any of this. Some of you don't see any of this. And what's that technique that they're using on you? Fear, fear, fear. You fear the government. You fear them. You fear the constables on patrol. You fear the police officers. But on the other side of fear is success. It's greatness. It's a freedom that you desire, but you're so damn afraid you won't face your fears. See, that's what's preventing you from becoming the man that you should be and you could be, but you're not because of fear. Fear is that great barrier that's preventing you. See, they want you to be afraid. Afraid is imaginary. Keeping that fear in you, you're creating an imaginary terrorist within your mind. Do you understand? It's an intangible. Fear really doesn't exist. It's an intangible. It only exists within your mind. You're afraid of disasters, afraid of new diseases, afraid of foreign countries, afraid of the economy, afraid of doing badly and inflation rising. They got you afraid of every darn thing. So if you doubt this, then take a look at the news and count the number of positive, uplifting news items and the number of negative and depressing news items. It doesn't take very much in the way of research to see the very heavy negative bias in the news. So the reason behind this is that to make you feel that you need the government, which is really a de facto, and army to protect you from the supposed grave dangers. It is easy to keep the news items biased that way because all of the major news agencies and media outlets in the world are owned by only 5 or 6 privately owned commercial companies. Don't believe me? Go and check it out for yourselves. So supposedly connect to your Strawman, which they created for you at birth and was registered. And by the way, when you register anything, keep this in mind. You give up complete control. You surrender true title when you register anything. They use the legalese technique of conning you with the name of the Strawman, and you start to believe that it's you. So that's what I mean. That birth certificate is a representation of death, of a death certificate, because it killed the living soul. It killed you mentally. So if you are ill-advised enough to go to court, which is a corporate place of business, that's what court is. It's a colorable venue. You show up, you give them validity. As the accused, you're the accused or defendant. You never go in as a defendant. Once you admit that you're a defendant for educational purposes only, I'm not giving any kind of legal advice, then they own you. You will be asked to confirm your name, quoting the full name shown on the birth certificate, which is the legal personality. So titles such as, now hear me well, because other people are probably not teaching you this. Titles such as Mr., Doctor, Reverend, Government, so MR, DR, REV, GOV, SET, or whatever, are not asked for as they are not required. Do you understand? So the accused, they don't ask you this. You could be a doctor. You go in, they don't ask you, well, are you Dr. So-and-so? No. You go in as a reverend, do they ask you, are you Reverend so-and-so? No, they don't ask you that. It's not required. The accused is actually the legal personality, which is the name on the birth certificate. So when they ask for the person's name, they're talking to the legal personality, which is the corporate construct, which is the strawman, which is the debtor, and not the living soul. Do you understand? Man, I hope you hear me, man. This is because a man cannot exist in the legal world. You didn't hear me, so I'm going to say it again. A man cannot exist in the illegal world. So when I go in, when they ask me who I am, I just know that I'm an aggrieved man. What do you mean, aggrieved man, Tazadaq? What does that word aggrieved mean? Go and look it up, because I know you suffer from aphasia, and I'm not insulting you, but look it up. You have the total inability to comprehend words and the proper usage thereof. I'm just an aggrieved man. Only pieces of paper can, and that is something which they are careful not to tell you. Only pieces of paper, fictions, can exist in the legal world. Do you understand? And this is really an essential issue. The natural law and common law are the only laws which apply to man and law, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father. And they deal only with harming other people or causing them loss. And outside of those restrictions, a man has free and unlimited entitlement to do anything he chooses, which complies with these principles, as long as he does not infringe upon the rights of another. Do you understand? Which is why they want to do away with the common law, as opposed to acts of Congress, statutes, and statutory instruments, contracts. They do not apply to the living soul unless you consent. Do you understand? If you know this, why are you not winning your cases? Why are you not winning every time? This is Tazadaq. I don't like your method, but I got a problem. I win every time. That's a good problem to have. Contracts do not apply to the living soul, but only to the piece of paper, which is the legal personality, which has no reality, as the legal fiction. The legal personality was created by the company called the United States. The United States is a company. I said it yesterday. Can someone tell me what U.S. code clearly depicts the United States as a company? Brother Dexter Johnston, do you know that? Brother Dennis Hagg, can you tell me what U.S. code depicts the United States as a corporation? Anyone in the room? Put it in the room. Anyone in the room? What U.S. code, because it's redundant. I say this stuff over and over. Since no one's put it in the room, look it up. 28 USC 3002 subsection 15A clearly states that the United States is a federal corporation. It is not a country. It is a corporation like any other country. Do you understand? But I'm crazy. Your family members has convinced you that you're crazy because you listen to morons like Tazadaq. And Tazadaq is insane, but I hit you with something. In the land of the insane, the sane is recognized as being insane. So I'm cool with that. I'm a weirdo. I'm good with that because I'm not like these other cookie cutters. I'm cut from a different cloth. So corporation, what is it? That company gets to say what's the rights and duties for that piece of paper. That corporation controls that piece of paper. See, when a person is born in the United States, the mother and father, so I'm not going to call them, right now I'm speaking in common parlance. So let me change that because I don't want to confuse you. When a people, understand, when you're speaking in colloquial speech, a person just mean a man or a woman. But when you're speaking in legalese, a person is a corporation. So When a people, so I say a people or a man, when a man is born in the United States, the mother and the father, usually the mother, submits a birth certificate registration form, which is a piece of paper. That's really a death certificate. But most of you don't get it. It's going over your head. Listen to this video no less than 6 times. See, when the corporation is created, they convince your mother and father that that is you, and so you die. They're doing away with the living soul, and you are meant to be in this thing. There is no requirement under common law to do this. Do you understand? Show me the law that tells me under common law that I need a birth certificate. When any limited company or corporation is set up, there's always a certificate of registration in order to create the legal personality. And that is a piece of paper. Do you understand? That's the same thing that the birth certificate is. Why? Because you're creating a corporation. They can't deny this. They want you to think that I'm crazy. They want you to believe that you're crazy because you're accepting that and your mind is starting to wake up. Please, please, please note, brothers and sisters, that an American birth certificate, or the United States, because America really doesn't exist anymore under these people, a United States birth certificate states quite clearly that it is not evidence of identity, meaning that it has nothing to do with any man or woman, living soul. Do you understand? Marked on it is U.S. copyright, showing clearly that it does not belong to an individual and was created by the state. Do you understand? It's copyrighted by the United States. If I copyright something, I own it, right? So the United States own that birth certificate. They just giving it to you because they want you to stand in the place. Do you understand? See, this act of registering a son or a daughter, making them a child, it makes that child a ward of the state and a ward of the court. And the child can be taken away from the mother and father at any time by way of CPS. Why? Because you signed it over. Now, let me ask you a question. Let me see who's thinking. I got a question. Why is it that they don't care even if the mother is married? Why is it, Brother Dexter, that Brother Dennis Hagg, that they don't care if the mother is married? They want her maiden's name and not her marital name. Why is that? Why is it? Julia Ridley, why is it that they want the maiden's name of the mother and not her married name? She's married. She's carrying her husband's last name, but they don't want her to put that on that certificate of live birth. Why is that? Why? Because what's a son or a daughter without a father? That's considered to be a bastard. A son or a daughter that's born that don't have a father is considered to be a bastard. A bastard, right? Yeah, a bastard. So if they don't have a bastard, what does that mean? When someone calls you a bastard, it means you don't have a father. So what does this mean? In layman's term, it means that the state assumes the position of being your father. Do you understand? So the state becomes your father. So when you get that birth certificate, the state becomes the father. Do you understand? This is why they're doing this. So now there's a bastard child. Are you guys following me? Are you getting this? This is why. This is how they're tricking you. Do you understand? So when a son or a daughter is born in the United States, the mother and father submits a birth certificate registration form, which is a piece of paper. There's no requirement under common law for this. I say it again. So when any limited company or corporation is set up, there's always a certificate of registration, just like it, for that particular corporation. So the act of registering your son or your daughter is making them a ward of the state. This act of registering your son or daughter means that you're giving away your rights over your son or daughter. So the legalese definition of words which sound commonplace can be found in Black Lord's Dictionary, and the current edition is way up, I think, to about the 12th. I prefer the 4th. After the 4th edition, they started to change words around. Now, interestingly enough, in legalese, you, the man, are defined as, when you refer, you see how they refer to you as a human being, right? You say, well, I'm not a person, because a person is a corporation, right? So you say, I'm a human being. Well, when you look human up in legalese, it's defined as a monster, which shows exactly what the people who use legalese think of you. Charming people, aren't they? So another trick that they play on you is to imply that a summons is something which that you must obey. While in fact, for educational purposes only, because if you ignore it and you don't know how to deal with it, don't blame Tazadaq. I know that I am not compelled that I have to obey a summons. I'm not compelled to obey that. It is only an invitation to attend their place of business. Do you understand? But because you don't comprehend contract law, for you, it's mandatory. They are not inviting you, the man or the womb man, but instead they're inviting the legal personality, the corporate fiction, the strawman into their place of business. And please note that there is a choice, and it's only an invitation. It's always an offer. Have I not told you it's always an offer? No matter what they send to you, go back and look at my old videos from 2010. I told you it's always an offer. Doesn't really matter the language that they're speaking. It's just an offer. You got 4 doors that you could go through. Anyone knows those 4 doors? There's 4 doors that you could go through with any kind of commercial presentment. Anything you get. I don't care if it's from the court. I don't care if it's from the bill collector. There's only 4 doors. 2 of them you stay in honor. 2 you go in dishonor. The first one is acquiescence, which means silence, which means you sit there like a dodo bird and you do nothing. That's dishonor. You're going to get dealt with. The next one is argue. That's what attorneys do. You can't argue with them. Even if you think that you're well-versed in legalese, you're not. So if you argue, you go in dishonor, you're going to lose, you're going to get dealt with. The third door is agreement. You agree. They make you an offer, you agree to it, you pay it, you stay in honor. And the fourth one, which is my favorite, and 99% of the time for me, is always a conditional acceptance. A conditional acceptance, which is a counter offer. So those are the only 4 doors that you could go through with any commercial presentment. If there's another one, then tell me. I dare you to show me right now. Do you understand? So the legal personality, again, brothers and sisters, is just a piece of paper, a birth certificate created by the commercial company called the United States Corporation. And it is not a living soul. You can't be forced into a contract, so they have to deceive you into entering into one without comprehending what you're doing. And this is what most of you do. I always tell you it's just an offer. They're using deception, as every black robe is a trading name of commercial company. The Department of Justice, which does not have a parent company listed, meaning that it is a parent company itself. So legal people on being shown this company, it's all, I need you to keep this in mind. It's all, these are all private companies. I know some people are going to walk away from this live stream and you're not going to get it, but you're dealing with private owned companies. So these things are registered, registration. You respond by realizing that if this information is genuine that I'm giving you, which it is, then the US GOV has been lawless for over 100 years because the whole justice system is being dealt with by a commercial company, which is the United States. Do you understand? This is why they don't want my videos on live stream. Other people are not telling you this. See, going to court in connection with any civil action for educational purposes only is a very bad idea, as the only functioning of a court is to judge between the two parties who disagree and then penalize the loser. Do you understand? So the court doesn't care who wins or who loses. And the objective of the court is to make a profit for its owners, as it is a commercial enterprise, and its purposes is to acquire fiat from anybody who is foolish enough to participate or attend. Now, did I tell you not to go? No, I'm just telling you what actually transpires there. It's always an offer. If you look at the summons, which is really an invitation. So, sister contact me. She just got a ticket. She doesn't know this. She should have been listening. And here's your folly. And this is what detests me about people. You wait until you're in trouble, then you want to reach out to Tazadaq, and you want me to work a damn miracle when you should have been studying this stuff and you should have been well versed. So when the problem arises, you would know how to deal with it. That's how you handle great problems. You deal with them while they are small. So you might have got a summons. They refer to as a traffic citation. So if you look at the summons, which is really an invitation, it's always an offer. I need you to keep this in your friggin' minds. It's always an offer. I don't care how it's written. It's always an offer. It's really an invitation to go to court. You will see that it's not your name, but in the name section is the name of the strawman, which they are hoping to fool you that it is you. Now, how do you deal with debt? That's enough on this strawman. How do you deal with debts? Yeah, Tazadaq, now you're talking. Let's deal with that, because the average, the way that the Negro mind thinks, he wants the A for V everything. He doesn't want to learn right knowledge. He just wants A for V. Why? Because you're a nigger. I hate to talk to you this way, but it's true. So dealing with debt. Now, because of a very high percentage of fiat earned being taken away from the average man, a woman is not unusual for people to end up with what looks like a deluge of debt. But most people spend their time worrying over the statements of which they're told that they owe, and do not, they don't get it. They do endless calculations to see if they agree with the numbers which they have been sent. Well, do I really owe this much? See, I know I don't owe anything. Again. Oh, you say I owe this? Roger that. I understand that this is the sort of misdirection which magicians use to fool their audiences, distracting their attention away from where the action is really taking place. This is what the USGOV is doing to you. Here, the question is really not how much is owed, but instead, is anything actually owed? That's the question. See, you need to remember this for educational purposes only, that any financial institution is a legal fiction and does not actually exist. Remember that. That's going to save you a lot of woes and a lot of worries. As a result of this, it could only deal with other legal fictions, essentially other pieces of paper, and it cannot have any dealings with the man or the woman, as they are not legal fictions, unless you consent and agree to stand in that place by creating joinder. It is also important to understand what passes for money nowadays. You need to know. See, let's say our trusty friend John Doe goes looking for a loan, and he fills out an application, which is a contract, by the way, with the swindle bank. for, let's say, $10,000. Now, interestingly, the form which he is asked to sign says that he has already received $10,000. The loan has not yet been approved. Do you understand? How many of you catch that? How many of you even take the time to read that? Now go ahead and fix your thick black lips and pretend that you've noticed it when you probably haven't. You probably didn't even pay attention to it. You just was so damn excited to get that fiat. So the next day, the loan's approved, and then John Doe is handed a check which he is asked to sign and deposit to his account with the bank. Well, we won't follow up on the very interesting procedure at that time. But please remember that he has now provided two signatures for $10,000 in the debtor's name. And all he received is 1 and 4 zeros in the account of Swindle Bank. Now, all goes very well for several months until John Doe loses his job and does not manage to get another one fast enough. Now, this financial trouble, which he does not know how to deal with because he's a debtor, he has a debtor's mentality. Time goes by, John Doe has not had sufficient fiat money to make payments against this loan for Swindle Bank. He starts getting letters from the bank saying that he must pay the arrears immediately and keep up with the payments in the future. Do you understand? Okay, roger that. There is not the slightest chance that happening, as John Doe does not have the fiat to pay this, and he does not know what to do. Why? Because he's a debtor, and he did not watch Tazadaq's videos. He did not read Tazadaq's books. So now he's behaving like a debtor, and he's afraid. He doesn't want to answer his phone anymore. He's afraid to check the mailbox. Now, fortunately, Tazadaq, the next door neighbor of John Doe, happens to be an independent creditor and facilitating information with years of experiences. And John Doe has the idea of asking Tazadaq for help. Now, Tazadaq is willing to help. And so he sits down and goes through all the paperwork. And then Tazadaq tells John Doe, you must not ignore the situation. Write back immediately. Do not acquiesce and say that you agree to pay the financial obligation which you might lawfully owe on the conditions that. Now notice Tazadaq is teaching John Doe how to give a conditional acceptance. On the conditions, I conditionally accept your offer upon proof of claim that. Number one, write this down or watch this video 6 times. Validation of the debt that is actually accounting. Number 2, verification of their claim against you that is signed, invoice. Number 3, a copy of the contract binding both parties, you and them, in a letter by certified mail so that there is no confusion and there is an independent witness to it having been delivered. Now, every letter, brothers and sisters, every letter you write for educational purposes only should be marked clearly without prejudice, which means, because I know you suffer from aphasia, many of you don't know what this means, which means that you reserve all your rights and you accept no contracts unless it is shown to be lawful and by meeting the 4 essential conditions to a lawful binding contract. Do you follow me? Does everyone get that? Are you listening? Everyone's clear so far? Everyone's getting this? Powerful information. Okay. So the next thing, full disclosure. Now, anyone in the room knows those 4 valid things that needs to be present for a contract to be valid? Because I'm gonna tell you, I don't care what kind of contract you think you entered into. If these 4 things do not exist, you can amend that contract and you can get out of that contract. Number one, these are the 4 elements for a contract to be valid. Full disclosure. You were not told that you were actually creating the credit with your wet ink signature. John Doe paid for the loan with his signature. That represented his energy. The bank never gave John Doe anything. Now, you can think I'm crazy all you want to, but you need to listen. Number 2, equal consideration. They brought nothing of value to the table and so had nothing to lose. So is the contract really valid? There's no equal consideration. Number 3, lawful terms and conditions. Yours was based on fraud. They frauded you. Number 4, wet ink signatures of both parties. Corporations can't sign because they have no right or mind to contract since they are soulless legal fictions, and furthermore, no third party can sign a contract on their behalf. Do you understand? So Tazadaq tells John Doe that agreeing to pay provided that conditional acceptance evidence of a lawful debt can be produced stops him from being taken advantage of and taken to court, because courts only adjudicate between parties who are in dispute. But Tazadaq taught him to offer conditional acceptance, and John Doe has agreed to pay. There's no dispute. Do you understand? So John Doe, did he say he won't pay? No. Tazadaq taught John Doe to say, I conditionally accept your offer upon proof of claim that if you could provide these 4 things, then hey, I'll pay it. That's a conditional acceptance. It's always a counter offer. Do you understand? Who's in dispute? No one is. Because Tazadaq taught John Doe to agree to pay. So if the swindle bank were foolish enough to try, John Doe has only to send the court a copy of his letter agreeing to pay, and the case would be thrown out. How many of you know this? So damn simple. So damn I should be charging you for this. I should be charging you for this because this is very valid information. So immediately the bank might well be penalized for wasting the court's time. Do you understand? So the bank is now in trouble, and it has been running a con game on John Doe, so it can't produce the documents for which John Doe has asked, that Tazadaq told him to ask for. So the request by John Doe was reasonable in every respect. Do you understand? However, a loan agreement is a contract. And so there has to be full disclosure of all details, which there was not. So both sides have to put up something of equal worth. If you miss this part, man, you're not going to get this. And you're going to keep losing. This is why I win every time. That didn't happen. And the contract has to be signed in wet ink by both parties, which the bank can't do. It's a corporation. So the bank has a real problem. Do you understand? The bank will probably send a statement of what it wants John Doe to believe is an outstanding amount. And you, like John Doe, will fall for it. You will go into bitch mode. Your knees will get shaky. Your palms will get sweaty. And you will make some kind of promise to pay. Now, John Doe, for educational purposes only, should return this with a polite note saying that a statement is not an invoice. So would you please provide a signed invoice as requested? See, They will also probably send a photocopy of the loan application form, at which point John Doe should write back and point out politely that it does not constitute a contract, as it is only signed by one party, him. Do you understand? You see how easy this is if you know it? And you could think it doesn't work. It works for me every time. Works for me every time. Why do you think I have a credit score of damn near 800? It works for me every time. So I don't care what they say about, oh yeah, well, that stuff that Tazadaq is doing don't work. Works for me every time. I'm not the one that's out there with a low credit score. I've mastered this game. I've become a contract law expert. So John Doe, he asks for a copy of the contract signed by both parties. That's what Tazadaq taught him. Now, am I telling you to do this? No. I told John Doe to do this. So the bank is likely to go silent, acquiesce at this point, and stop corresponding with John Doe. James should then write again requesting that the necessary documents, or John Doe, should I say, should then write again requesting that the necessary documents be sent to him within the next 14 days, or maybe 28 days. And if that does not happen, then he will consider this matter set off, settled, and closed. Do you understand? So the bank will either remain silent or write back to say that the debt is fully discharged. Do you understand? Do you understand? If the bank tries phoning, then just tell them politely that you only wish to deal with them in writing, and then hang up. If the bank remains silent for the stated period of time, then John Doe should write back stating that due to the bank's failure to provide the necessary evidence of a lawful debt within the reasonable time period, the allotted time period that was provided, that John Doe now considers that debt is fully set off, settled, and closed or discharged, and asks the bank to confirm that in writing. Do you follow me? So the bank will normally write back confirming that the debt is fully discharged and that there is nothing owing. And if it does not do that, it will just stop asking for any further payments. Case closed. How much information I just gave you right there, and you didn't even attend the seminar. So imagine what you're going to gain at the seminar. So the reason for how and why this takes place, it takes a good deal of explaining, and many people find it difficult to comprehend. Most of you still don't get what I just explained. So it's covered. I'm covering a lot of stuff at the seminar. So I will highly advise you to get to this seminar in Philly. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What is money? Someone in the room, tell me what money is. What is money? I'm going to try not to be too much longer. Originally, in England, the unit of money was called £1 sterling. That was because, and by the way, some of you probably wonder why I always talk a lot about history. I'm a historian. I study history. I don't just study the law. I'm a historian. I'm a scientist. I'm a man of many splendid facets. So, nevertheless, that was because it was literally sterling silver weighing £1, as it was quite difficult to carry several pounds of weight of currency around with you. It was arranged that the actual silver could actually be held in a bank, and a promissory note, which is a promise to pay, by the way, was essentially a receipt for the deposit of each pound of silver that was actually deposited into the bank. Do you follow me? So a promissory note was issued. It was much easier to carry the banknotes, the promissory notes, around and to do business with them. Now, if you wanted to, you could always take the notes to the bank and ask for the promissory notes to be cash and get your silver out of the bank. How many of you knew this? Some? Anyone? Anyone knew this? You should, because I've spoken about this in previous videos. So the bank would hand you the equivalent weight of sterling silver in exchange for the promissory notes. Now, today, the currency in the United States is banknotes, which are certainly easier to carry around than the metal coins of gold and silver. But there is one very important difference. These notes are issued by a private company called the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm about to teach you something, man. I'm about to wake you up. I'm going to get you out of this matrix, man. So, you see at the top, this is a 20, this is a fiat 20 bill. You see up here? Federal Reserve note. Now, when you look at the definition of money, one of the things that it says, it does not embrace notes. It does not embrace notes. Money, real money does not embrace notes. I just want to make sure that you hear me. So these notes are issued by a private company called the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a good name for a company as any other name. But guess what? The Federal Reserve Bank is not even federal at all. So if you were to take one of their banknotes to a branch of that company and ask for it to be cash, all they would give you is another note with the same number of credit printed on it. Or alternatively, other notes with similar numbers printed on them. And for example, if I wanted to go and cash this 20, they might give me 2 10s or 4 5s or 21s, but they wouldn't give me gold or silver. You see where I'm going with this? This is because, unlike the original banknotes, there is nothing of physical value backing the banknotes of today. Do you understand? They are only materially worth the physical paper on which they are printed. They're not worth anything. So it actually gets worse than that, family. What happens most commonly nowadays is that they do not even bother printing those pieces of paper. Now they just tap some numbers into a computer because they're trying to do away with the paper money now. How many of you realize that? Most people are using debit cards. Most people don't even like to use cold cash anymore. You're using debit cards. You're falling more and more into the matrix and the mark of the beast. So they tap something into a computer record, or if they're old-fashioned enough, they will write the numbers into a ledger by hand. So what do these numbers represent? Nothing at all. They have no actual value, family. In other words, just as much value as if you type them into your own computer. Quite meaningless. I know you think I'm crazy, but hear me out. And yet a bank or other financial institutions will merely lend you those numbers in return for years of your work, your energy, plus interest. They would charge you interest on it. Now, isn't that really generous of them? Now, actually, there's nothing funny about this at all, folks, because if you don't keep paying them that fiat earned by your hard work, because they didn't give you anything, I'll be first to tell you, they will attempt to take your house and all of your possessions away from you. This won't happen if you comprehend what Tazadaq has actually been teaching you. This won't happen if you understand that what they lent you was actually valueless. Now, take the case of Jerome Daly of Minnesota in America. In court, Jerome challenged the right of the bank to foreclose on his home, which had been purchased with a loan from the bank. Jerome argued that any mortgage contract required that both parties, that is himself and the bank, put up a legitimate form of property for the exchange. So in legal language, That is called a legitimate consideration. Do you understand? Put forward by both parties to the contract. Do you understand? How many people out there going through a foreclosure? You might want to hear this. If you're not going through a foreclosure, maybe a family member is going through a foreclosure. You might want to go and get them right now and say, hey, man, you better come and listen to Tazadaq because he's putting out some very valuable information that he usually put out in seminars. But like I said, this is the preliminary video for the seminar on June 16th and June 17th. So all of you that's going through a foreclosure might want to listen up. Or if you have family members that's going through a foreclosure. Now, Jerome, he explained that the money was in fact not the property of the bank, as it actually had been created out of nothing. And as soon as the loan agreement was signed, it was created out of nothing. So that is, the money does not come out of the bank's existing assets, as the bank is simply inventing it out of thin air. And in reality, the bank is putting up nothing of its own except for a fictitious liability on paper. Do you understand? If you have this knowledge, you will be blessed and unstoppable. But you got to know how to explain this. So as the court case progressed, the president of the bank, Mr. Morgan, took the stand and admitted that the bank, in combination with the privately owned commercial company called the Federal Reserve Bank, created the entire amount of the loan in credit in its own books by means of bookkeeping entry, the money and the credit coming into existence when they created. Furthermore, Mr. Morgan admitted that no United States law or statute exists which gives him the right to do this. When questioned, why don't you question him on that? Those of you that's go, I'm giving up too much information because you're not going to have to come to me for foreclosure now. But anyways, a lawful consideration must exist and must be tendered to support the loan agreement. So the jury found that there had been no lawful consideration put forth by the bank. So the court rejected the bank's application for foreclosure, and Jerome Daly kept his home debt-free. Do you understand? True story. You could do the same thing if you learn contract law. If you get my books and really read them, not just once, but read them over and over and over again, because each time you read them, you're going to get something else from it. So this is exactly the situation with all mortgages in the United States, brother Jimmy. So when someone makes an application for a mortgage or any other loan, the applicant's signature is required on the application from before the loan is approved. Why is that? Somebody answer me. Do 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 do. Dun, 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 dun. Why is that? Why do they require your signature before the loan's even approved? See, the signature on the signed application makes it a valuable piece of paper which the bank can deposit into its account as a credit to the bank for the amount of the loan. Do you understand? The bank could just keep that application form and stay ahead by $100,000 or whatever. But they want more. They want more, much more. They want the borrower to pay them the same amount again. And because you don't know the law, I mean the contract, I mean the law, you do it. So they want you to pay him again. They want you to pay that amount again, funding it by years of labor, and not only the amount of the supposed loan, but significant extra amount in entrance as well. Why do you think that they are so keen to lend you money? They're even willing to lend to people with very poor credit, as there's no way that the bank can lose on a deal like this, no matter what happens. Do you understand? This is why if a company starts demanding payment of large sums of fiat, that you call money, you start by asking them to provide the accounting for the deal. In other words, you are asking them to show in writing that they provided something of genuine worth. Do you understand? Is everyone following me? Oh, you saying, Tazadaq, man, this live stream is fire. I didn't know this was going to be this good. I'm not done just yet. I'm not done just yet. So, I mean, hopefully, if you got a family member going through these foreclosures, whatever kind of alleged debt that you think I could tell you don't owe anything, man. You don't owe anything, which is why they want to shut me down on YouTube. They don't want this information out here. Why? Because Tazadaq is putting his hands in his pocket, and I got to be careful because that's one of the rules of commerce. Don't interfere with commerce. So, as they invented the money as numbers in their books with no real worth attached to those numbers, they're in deep trouble as they can't comply with your demands to seeing the accounting for the deal. Did you ever wonder how the average bank managed to make hundreds of millions of dollars profit per year, every year? Well, you're looking right at where a large chunk of it comes from. Now let's talk about bookkeeping. I'm going to talk about bookkeeping very briefly, and I'm going to tell you how to deal with these constables on patrol. Then I'm going to bring this to an end, most high willing. So the next information that I want to give you might be a little difficult for most people to understand, to comprehend. So when any business is being run, the accounts are recorded as money coming in and money going out. For a bank, the money coming in is called credit, and the money going out is called debt. Debtor, a creditor. Which are you? See, the objective is to have two amounts always match the other. This is called balance for any customers. Now, not everything done in banking is immediately obvious to the average man, a woman, a person. So it may be a little difficult to understand how everything works in this particular area. So if you have an account with a bank and you deposit $200 to open the account, the bank enters that in its books as credit. So the credit on your account is $200 and the debt is zero. So the balance has a positive or credit value of $200. Do you follow me? Now, if you were to withdraw $300, then the bank would record this as a debit of $300. When the credit balance on your account is $200, the balance on your account would be $100 in debt. This is overdrawn by $100, then close your account. The bank would not have any problem other than the fact that they would like to keep you on as a customer. So as far as the accounting goes, your account is balanced and the bank is satisfied with the state of affairs. $300 has come in and $300 has gone out. The books are balanced. Case closed. Do you understand? Now, if you were to apply for a loan, a mortgage, or otherwise, is everyone with me? So if you was to apply for a mortgage loan or something of that nature, or any kind of other loan, maybe you want to you wanted to get that that Beamer or whatever, or you wanted to get that Bugatti, whatever you wanted to get, you wanted to apply for this loan, and it's a pretty healthy loan, right? So let's say you wanted a loan for $100,000 from the bank. They will give you an application form, which is to set out in such a way that you have to fill in the strawman's name rather than your own name. Separate boxes with one of them containing Mr. Now, if you didn't watch my live stream yesterday, this is going to go over your head. This is when I do live streams. You should try and tune in. If you didn't watch it, you need to go back and watch that video. So whenever you see the word Mr. in front of your name, that's not the name that your parents gave you. That's a fiction. That's a corporation. Do you understand? So that makes it a fiction. It makes it a straw man. And they may even require that you fill in the form using block capital letters. So you may think that the capital letters are so they can read your writing, or perhaps to make it easier for them to be entered into the computer. But the name in the capital letters belong to the straw man, not you. You have actually just made an application on the behalf of the straw man and not on the behalf of yourself. Now, many of you might wonder, why would they want to do this? After all, what could they get from the straw man? Well, you might be surprised. When the straw man was incorporated, they assigned a large monetary value to it, possibly $100 million. And they have been trading on, have traded it on the stock market on behalf of the straw man ever since then. And you know how many years that's been, however old you are. So very surprisingly, in their opinion, the little fellow is really very, very rich. And you have just authorized them to take the amount of your loan application from the straw man's account. Do you understand? So when you saw people like Harvey Dent trying to say, oh yeah, Treasury direct account, it's all based on this. It's all based on this. It's all based on, it goes back to the birth certificate. Everything goes back to this. So this is why it's printed on bond paper. So unless you become, for educational purposes only, executor of your estate, they appoint an attorney to that estate, and that attorney is controlling your estate, and they're withdrawing fiat from that estate. Do you understand? So before the bank passes you any fiat or money, it has already gotten its money from the straw man account, entered into the books as $100 million or $100,000 credit to your loan account. Then they place another $100,000 into your loan account as a debit. So interesting, the loan account is now balanced and could easily be closed out as a completed deal. Do you understand? Do you understand? So some of you know this because some of you tried the acceptor for value and you sent off a remittance to the CFO. And what did he do with it? He kept it. But you get contact from someone else and you say, well, it didn't work. It's because you don't understand offer and acceptance. And you keep coming back to me, Tazadaq, it didn't work. Well, I contend that it did. I contend that you just really don't comprehend contract law. They've been paid. They kept it. Acceptance forms a binding contract. See, this is where the sneaky part comes in. To get the money out of your account, you have to write and sign a check for $100,000 on that account. What does the bank do with checks which you sign is the question. It assigns them to the account as an asset of the bank, and suddenly the bank is ahead $100,000 because the check is in the name of the straw man who can supply the bank with almost any amount of money. But it does not end there, family. It doesn't end there. As the bank is confident that you know very little about what's going on, you will pay them anything up to $100,000 over the years against what you believe you owe them. So if that happens, they have made yet another $100,000 for the bank. To make things even better for them, they want you to pay them interest on the money, which you, not them, which you, your energy created. Now you can think I'm crazy all you want to, but don't believe me, go and check it out. And if you doubt this, if you went and got a family member and they're listening, don't believe me, go and check it out. But you can't do this overnight. You need to learn how to do this. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes dedication. They convince you that you owe them. So overall, they make a great deal of money. When you borrow from them, so perhaps you can see now why banks make hundreds of millions of profit each year. So if the loan was used to buy property, then the bank probably insisted that you assign the title deeds to them as a collateral for the loan. So as soon as the property deal closed and was completed. So if you then fail to keep paying them, what's going to happen? They're likely to attempt to foreclose on the loan and sell your property quickly for an even greater profit. Keep that in mind, Brother Sean, when you get your land. And to add to insult to the injury, if the property sale did not exceed the amount of the loan, plus the charges for selling it, then they are likely to claim that you owe them the difference. How many of you ever had a car repossessed, right? What happens when they repossess the car? They go out, they sell it to an auction for what it's really worth. And then let's say you owe $15,000. They only got 10 for it. Then they're going to bill you for $5,000. Do you understand? See, perhaps you can now see why Jerome Daly told them to go and take a running jump into the damn lake. And why your request for the accounting for any loan made to you, you always, henceforth for educational purposes only, I always request the accounting for any loan made to me. Put the banks in an impossible situation and you will win every time. If the bank then just write and tell you that the debt is fully discharged, then they still made a massive profit on the operation. And they also hope that the vast majority of their customers will not catch on to the fact that they are paying far too much for their property, or even there is a strawman involved. Do you understand? So please don't feel like you're ripping the banks off. Please don't feel like you're doing something wrong, because there's a lot of debtors out there that's going to tell you that you're doing something wrong. Don't feel like that. Don't feel like that. Don't feel like that. They have already recovered everything paid out before you start paying them anything the second time. So when it is a mortgage, Brother Jimmy, the entire process is very much the same. If you want to learn how to really do this stuff, be at the creditor seminar this Saturday, June 16th and June 17th, and you will learn much more than you're learning here. So the buyer goes in, let's call it Magic Bank, in response to the bank's claim that it is a business of lending money in accordance with its corporate charter. So the buyer went to the bank believing that the Magic Bank had the asset, which is the money, to lend. But, Magic Bank never tells its customers the truth that it does not have any money to lend. How many of you decided to actually download that Modern Money Mechanics that Sister KO put in the talk show room the other night? You should read that. It tells you that banks can't loan money. It can't loan other people's money. Banks can't loan money at all. So you're deceived, man. So the Magic Bank is not permitted to use the depositor's money, and they can't lend to borrowers. It's in their own banker's manual. Now, notwithstanding the fact that Magic Bank does not have any money to lend, Magic Bank makes the buyer or the borrower sign a mortgage loan application form, which is essentially a promissory note saying that the buyer which is the borrower, promised to pay Magic Bank for the money. What money? What money? Which he is supposed to receive from Magic Bank even before any value or consideration is received by the borrower or the buyer from Magic Bank. Are you following me? This promissory note is a valuable consideration, a receivable, and therefore an asset transferred from the buyer to the bank, which Magic Bank enters into its own asset account as a cash deposit. You've been deceived, folks. They didn't loan you anything. It's your energy that's creating the money. This is why they want your signature. After making sure that the buyer has the ability to pay the required monthly payments, the buyer, which means the buyer has credit, Magic Bank agrees to lend the buyer the money, the cash, to pay the seller. So Magic Bank has no money to lend, but it gives the buyer a promise to lend money by way of a commitment letter, loan approval letter, loan authorization, or a loan confirmation letter, etc., 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 signed by a bank officer or a loan mortgage officer employed by Magic Bank. So Magic Bank acceptance of the buyer's promissory note makes the bank liable to the buyer or borrower for the full face value of the promissory note, which is actually agreed purchase price of the property less any cash deposit or down payment money paid by the borrower directly to the seller. So it's important to note that at this point, that all real estate transactions require that the property being sold must be conveyed by the seller to the buyer free of all liens and encumbrance, which makes that all liens and such as existing mortgages, judgments, etc., must be paid before the property can be mortgaged by the buyer as collateral to the mortgage loan, which is yet to be received by the buyer pursuant to the promise made by Magic Bank. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So how can the seller pay off the mortgage and obtain clear title if he has not yet received the money from the buyer is the question. How can the buyer mortgage a property that does not yet belong to him? You folks are just not thinking. See, this dilemma is solved using Magic Bank's magic bag of tricks. Magic Bank is in concert with the bank lawyers or notaries and causes all liens and encumbrance to magically disappear by writing. By writing what? Anyone knows? How does Magic Bank make this disappear? What do they write? How do they make it disappear? Someone in the room. Someone type it in the room right now. Hurry up, hurry up. Someone type in the room. How does Magic Bank makes it disappear? By writing a Magic Bank check. Poof. Backed by the buyer's promissory note and agreement of purchase and sell. Deposited into the lawyer's trust account to pay the seller for the property at closing. In essence, using the buyer's promissory note as the cash to enable the agreement of the purchase and sell. So the buyer's promissory note made the conveyance possible. Magic Bank caused the property to be conveyed from the seller to the buyer with the title free and clear of all encumbrance and liens. Do you understand? So the property now belongs to the buyer, which makes it possible for the buyer to mortgage his property to Magic Bank. So you own that property right then, but you don't realize it. What do? You mortgage. You should keep it, but you don't. The buyer actually paid for the property using his own promissory note. You don't get it. So at this point, the seller has not yet received any money or cash. So Magic Bank and its magicians must perform more magic tricks in order to satisfy the seller's requirement that he or she gets paid, or the whole deal is null and void. So the seller does not even know that the property has been magically conveyed to the buyer's name in order for the seller to receive any money. Do you understand? So the insuring magic trick is accomplished this way. The buyer is made to sign a second promissory note. The mortgage contract is attached to the promissory note, which makes the buyer liable to pay Magic Bank for the money or the loan which the buyer has not yet or may never receive for up to 25 or 30 years, depending on the term of the mortgage contract. So the note is linked to the collateral through the mortgage contract, and as such, it is valuable to Magic Bank. So Magic Bank then goes to the Federal Reserve Bank or another bank to pledge the deal that they have just gotten from the buyer for credit. The Federal Reserve Bank then gives Magic Bank the credit. And remember, it is not Magic Bank's credit. It is the buyer's credit who promised to pay. Magic Bank, if when the money is received by the buyer from Magic Bank, payable for the next 25 or 30 years. Now, I want you to take notice that what happened is basically a swap transaction. All banks do this. All banks do this. All banks do this to monetize security. So in this case, the second promissory note that is linked to the mortgage contract and signed essentially is how the seller really got paid. Magic Bank didn't give him a damn thing. The buyer created that. The buyer created that with his promissory note. Do you understand? The buyer is a mortgage-backed security. You didn't hear me. The buyer is a mortgage-backed security. You still didn't hear me. The buyer is a mortgage-backed security. Magic Bank will then agree to pay the Federal Reserve Bank a certain percentage of interest over prime. So thus, the buyer's loan package goes to the Federal Reserve Bank, which create Magic Banks with the full amount of credit, which is the total amount the money Magic Bank is entitled to over the next 25 or 30 years, which is the amount of the principal plus the interest payments the buyer has promised to pay to Magic Bank for 25 or 30 years or more. And usually 3 times the amount of money promised to Magic Bank by the buyer. You see that? So by Magic Bank just enriched itself and got paid in advance without using any risk of his own money. See how they pull tricks out of their magic bag of tricks? And because you don't know the law, the contract, it works on you every time. See, Magic Bank's magicians, the lawyers who holds the checks, that is actually backed by the buyer's original promissory note, then writes a check to the seller as a payment for the property. See that magician? Lawyer. So in effect, the buyer paid the seller with his own money by virtue of the fact that it was the buyer's own money, the promissory note, that made the purchase and the sale possible. Does everyone understand what I'm saying to you? So then Magic Bank just made a cool 300% profit without using any of its money and risking any of its own capital. Do you understand? Neither was any depositor's money deducted from Magic Bank's assets account in this transaction. This is what's really going on, people. You're lost in the matrix. So what really happened was pure deception. And if we, the people, tried to do this, we would end up in prison, being found guilty of fraud and criminal conversion, not to mention that the property would have been seized by the courts. So why are we, the people, allowing these banksters to get away with this? These banksters are running the world. See, this is only a crime if we the people do it to each other, as it would actually be it would be an indictable crime. But if we issued a check with no funds, it's an indictable crime. There would not be any denial, there would not be any deal, no purchase and sell agreement, because there is no valuable consideration. So in order to be decriminalized the transaction, we need Magic Bank and their cohorts to make the deal. So it is really a conspiracy. And these persons, the banks, the lawyers, the land title officers, or even the courts, do not consider the transactions as fraudulent transactions, because these transactions happen all of the time. All of the time. And if you don't believe this, then you're definitely still asleep. You're definitely still asleep. And these contracts, these type of contracts, beloved, brothers and sisters, they're controlling you. And such a contract is void ab initio, or void from the beginning, which means that the contract never took place in the first place. And furthermore, the good faith and fair dealing requirement through full disclosure is non-existent, which further voids the contract. But you're still allowing them to take your homes. You're still allowing them to take your cars, because you don't comprehend law. You just say that you do. You really don't. See, Magic Bank failed to disclose to the buyer that it was not at all, it would not at all be giving the buyer any valuable consideration and taking interest back as additional benefits to unjustly enrich the corporation. Magic Bank also failed to disclose how much profit they are going to make on the deal. So Magic Bank led the buyer to believe that the money going to the seller would be coming from its own assets, when it really wasn't. They lied because they knew, or ought to have known, that their own books or own ledger would show that Magic Bank does not have any money to lend, and that their records will show that no such loan transaction ever took place, which is why I'm always suggesting, for educational purposes only, any loan that you are involved in henceforth, tell them to show you the bank records. I want to see the records. Do you understand? And you're going to see that no transaction took place. So you got your ass, Esau. So their own book will show that there would be no debits from Magic Bank's assets accounts at all, and all that would show up are the two entries that was made by the buyers that gave Magic Bank the first collateral, or the promissory note, which enabled Magic Bank to cut a check, which made it possible to convey the property from the seller to the buyer, and free and clear of all liens and encumbrance, as required by the agreement of purchase and sale entered into in writing between the buyer and the seller. So what really happened was not magic. In reality, the buyer's promissory note was issued by Magic Bank and its magicians, which are the lawyers, and land title clerks, to convey free title to the buyer from the seller. So why do we need the mortgage contract at all? See, the other entry that will show up when we audit Magic Bank's account is the other pledge of collateral, including the buyer's promissory note, which was converted unlawfully, by the way, unlawfully, without disclosure or permission from the buyer, into a mortgage-backed security, which was swapped or deposited by Magic Bank to the Federal Reserve Bank, for which another deposit was entered into Magic Bank's transaction. And if you could get this, you will win your foreclosures every time. I guarantee it. So go ahead and give me $10,000 right now. You're going to win your foreclosure every time. So from the above information or the preceding information that I just provided you with, we can list all criminal acts perpetrated by Magic Bank and all of these other banksters out here, because these banksters, they all pretty much operate the same way. Do you understand? What are these criminal acts? Write this down, Brother Jimmy. What was the criminal acts that took place? Well, number one, the mortgage contract was void ab initio, because, meaning from the beginning, because Magic Bank lied and never intended to lend a single cent of their own assets or depository's money to the buyer. Number two, a valid contract must have a lawful or valuable consideration. The contract fell for anticipated breach. Magic Bank never planned to give the buyer or the borrower any valuable consideration. Number three, Magic Bank breached all its fiduciary duties to the buyer and is therefore guilty of criminal breach of trust by failing in its good faith and requirements. Did you catch that, Brother Jimmy? Number four, Magic Bank concealed the fact from the buyer that it would actually be using the buyer's promissory note first to clear all liens and encumbrance in order to convey clear title to the buyer, and then use the second promissory note to obtain more money from the Federal Reserve Bank or some other financial institution that buy or sell mortgages-backed securities. So Magic Bank received up to 3 times the amount of the money required to purchase the property and kept the proceeds to itself without ever telling the buyer. Number 5, Magic Bank violated its corporate chapter by lending credit or nothing at all to the buyer and then charging interest on this make-believe loan. They never loaned you anything. Bankers are only licensed to lend their own money, not other people's money. Magic Bank used the buyer's promissory note to clear the title, which essentially purchased the property from the seller. So the transaction is an ultra-virus transaction because Magic Bank has engaged in a contract outside of its lawful mandate. An ultra-virus contract is void and voidable because it is non-existent in law. And if you didn't catch what I'm saying ULTRAVIRES, contract. Number 6, everyone involved in the undertaking, Brother Jimmy, with Magic Bank, starting with the loan or the mortgage officer, the lawyers, the land title office, and even the central bank, are equally guilty by association by adding and abetting Magic Bank in the commission of its crimes against the buyer and the people who would eventually have to absorb all the loss. Do you understand? Do you understand? This is how and people are being swindled daily. People have their homes taken from them daily, again and again and again, because they don't get this. They don't understand this. So you're losing your homes daily. You're consistently losing things again, again, and again. But if you apply this, you'll get out of this situation. If you apply these tactics, you will get out of these situations. I said I was going to actually go into dealing with the police, but hey, I'm a little bit exhausted with talking. So, in the final analysis, Magic Bank and the others who profited from the ultra viruses transactions or all guilty of unjust enrichments and fraud for deceiving the buyer and the people, and for acting in concert in this joint endeavor to deceive the buyer. A clique of criminals. A clique of criminals. So, brothers and sisters, I definitely know that you got something out of this. This is actually a pretty long talk here. I've been speaking like an hour, 45 minutes, and I'm pretty exhausted. So I'm going to bring this one to an end. Thank everybody for tuning in. You got someone that's actually dealing with these foreclosures. Now you got the information. You got to actually help them get out. If you're dealing with a car loan, same thing applies. Dealing with property, same thing applies. The banks are not authorized to loan anyone else's money. Understand that. So always ask for their records. Always ask for their records to see the transactions. So with that, I'm going to say shalom, shalom, and I hope to see you at the Creditors Conference on June the 16th, June 17th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's going to be on 120, and thank you, Kimberly, on 120 South 17th Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103. So that's going to be from 12 noon to 6 p.m. Hope to see you there. Again, if you're going to reserve the ticket online, you could actually only reserve it up until about 12 p.m. tomorrow. Then we're going to take it down, and you're going to have to actually donate more at the door, because it's only it's only fair that the people that's actually only donated in advance get a discount. So the people that wait until they get to the door to pay, it's going to be a little more. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. Tired of talking, losing my voice. Besides that, I got to stay up. I got to stand up for like 12 hours Saturday and Sunday in total. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. Kwam Yasha Allah, Kwam Yasha Allah. Thank everybody for listening. Hey, like this video, give the video some thumbs up, share the video with your family members, help them to get their minds right. But as it says in the book of 1 Corinthians, if a man be ignorant, then let him be ignorant. You can't force anyone to learn anything. If you try and go to someone with this, they don't want to hear it. If a man be ignorant, then let him be ignorant. Hey, shalom, shalom, peace. Tazadaq is out.